Before I open the floor for deliberations, I'd like to give the floor to the delegation from Vietnam for their comments, if possible.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, and dear colleagues, our gathering here affirms a shared belief that international trade, rooted in equality and mutual benefit, can foster friendly relations among nations. As global environmental challenges intensify, there is a growing demand for effective emission reduction strategies and sustainable resource management. Carbon credit markets, particularly voluntary ones, are gaining traction as tools to address these issues while unlocking economic potentials. However, these markets face serious challenges: inconsistent carbon accounting, lack of transparency, fragmented standards, and questions over credit integrity, just to name a few. Currently, there is no unified international legal framework governing voluntary carbon credit trading. Many countries lack clear regulations, and cross-border transactions often suffer from legal uncertainty. This lack of clarity undermines transparency and hinders the full development of global carbon markets. As noted in the UNCITRAL study, these markets have largely developed without public oversight, and most credits are traded outside formal legal systems. To enable predictable, trustworthy, and scalable transactions, a harmonized legal framework is urgently needed, one that supports both state and private sector actors. Legal unification will not only simplify cross-border trading, but also foster trust and accelerate the adoption of sustainable economic practices and climate goals. Vietnam, recognizing the urgency of environmental challenges, has taken proactive steps to promote emission reduction and environmental protection. Our national strategy to 2050 emphasizes mobilizing resources for green initiatives and developing strong financial mechanisms and carbon markets. Establishing a domestic carbon credit market is seen as a key driver for our socio-economic benefits, financial growth, and technology transfer. Our 2020 law on environmental protection affirms this direction, mandating the development of a carbon market that includes trading emission quotas and carbon credits from both domestic and international mechanisms, in line with the Vietnamese law and international treaties. The 2025 scheme on carbon market development proposes a centralized market model under state supervision, ensuring transparency, effectiveness, and a balance between national interests and market stakeholders. Vietnam is finalizing its legal framework through two key decrees. Decree number 119 of 2025 defines the compliance market structure, eligible participants, transaction procedures, and market launch roadmap. A draft decree on domestic carbon exchanges will regulate trading, clearing, and settlement of both voluntary and compliance market credits. The carbon market will operate on Vietnam's stock exchange infrastructure, starting with spot market transaction and later exploring derivatives. Eligible credits include those from domestic programs, CDM, JCM, and mechanisms under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. All credits must be verified, registered in the National Registry System, and listed on the Hanoi Stock Exchange. In 2025, Vietnam also hosted the Vietnam Carbon Market Forum in Hanoi, aiming to inform stakeholders about the market's mechanism and legal roadmap. Under Decision No. 232 of the Prime Minister, the carbon market will develop in three phases. First is the legal and infrastructure groundwork by June 2025. The second is the pilot operations spanning into 2028, and finally, full implementation since 2029. These efforts demonstrate Vietnam's strategic, well-regulated approach to building a transparent and functional carbon market. Beyond Vietnam, we also find that many countries are advancing carbon market frameworks to support global climate goals. Brazil established a greenhouse gas emissions trading system in December 2024. Paraguay followed with the creation of its Carbon Markets Directorate. This reflects growing national efforts to build robust emission reduction systems. At the international level, the Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC, held in Baku in November 2024, adopted key decisions to operationalize cooperative approaches under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Article 6, Paragraph 2 enables countries to transfer mitigation outcomes, ITMOs, in exchange for investments, technology, and capacity building. While Article 6, Paragraph 4 lays the foundation for a global carbon crediting mechanism. Globally, 28 cap and trade systems are active, 8 are being developed, and 12 are under consideration. These include systems in the EU, China, Japan, South Korea, the US, the United Kingdom, Canada, Mexico, and others. In parallel, baseline and credit systems are being developed and explored in countries like Canada, Australia, France, Thailand, and the US. Nations such as Cote d'Ivoire, El Salvador, and Peru are also creating domestic legal structures for ITMO participation. Collectively, these efforts reflect a global shift towards structured carbon markets to meet emission targets and promote sustainable development. Given our active role in UNCITRAL and the Commission's recent efforts to develop a robust legal framework for public-private partnerships, we propose that the Commission mandate the Secretariat to conduct further exploratory work on carbon markets, building on the UNCITRAL UNIDRA study and prior colloquia. This work could include mapping ongoing initiatives by international organizations such as the Hague Conference on Private International Law, the SCCH, the UNIDRA, and the UNFCCC, all of which are addressing aspects of carbon markets, including the legal nature of verified carbon credits, or the VCCs, and cross-border trading frameworks. Reviewing developments under Article 6, Paragraph 2 and 4 of the Paris Agreement, including bilateral carbon trading agreements and relevant domestic legislation or case law, even if some areas fall outside the current scope of the UNCITRAL UNIDRA study. And most importantly, identifying whether any international private or trade law aspects of carbon markets could be harmonized to assist states, particularly developing states, in designing domestic frameworks, negotiating agreements, and integrating into broader voluntary and compliance carbon markets. This work aims to address legal gaps and uncertainties that currently hinder the effectiveness and transparency of cross-border carbon credit trading, limiting its potential to support climate goals and economic development. By identifying areas for harmonization, UNCITRAL can provide states with legal tools to manage risk, improve legal clarity, and facilitate participation in global markets. Vietnam suggests that the Secretariat prepare a brief note summarizing this exploratory work for submission to the Commission's 59th session in 2026, enabling further consideration of this topic in line with UNCITRAL's mandate to modernize and harmonize international trade law and promote economic stability and opportunity for all. Thank you for your attention. You the floor back to the chair.
I thank the distinguished delegates from Vietnam for the presentation.